you're having a good day. This is a tiger bark ficus or just a Ficus microcarpa. Well, let me just give you guys a good look at all the way around it there. This was a little, clearance from Walmart that I got, and I had put it over a rock. I did a video when I took it off the rock, and then after I took it off the rock, I actually potted it in something a little bit bigger than this, let it recover, and then I just kind of realized that it had a horrible looking entrance into the substrate there, mainly because of the way I had it perched up on the rock, and that didn't really even work out all that well or anything. And I wound up pulling it off. I did another repotting video, and there's a kind of a surface root right there. You can see a rather larger one. And I cut everything else off basically, and I left this larger one and a few dangling from, like what would be the stump, but took everything else off. Leveled it up, put it in here, and it really was recovering great. The roots were going the way, I could even see them through the substrate. You could see white roots heading to the edge of the pot. And then I didn't protect it at all when the hurricane hit. And basically this thing got like bare rooted. I mean, it got tore up. It didn't have anything left. I didn't have that surface root that far up. I noticed that it's starting to get a little bit more tight in the pot. It's not nowhere near root bound, but it's starting to get a little more tight in the pot than it was there, at first. It's been at least 4 months now since the hurricane, I guess. I'm not ready to repot it yet. Microcarpa don't take from root cuttings. I've tried several times. I haven't got one to take yet. If they did come from root cuttings, I'd be trying to cut it there and just let a cutting grow from it and then separate them at the repot. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can remove it and kind of separate it a little bit. If there's not much to it, I might pull it out. But if it's kind of root bound in there, I'll just let it go. And then if it does not take, it'll just kind of shrivel up. And when I notice that starts to shrivel up and kind of get rotten in there, that should be about time to repot the whole thing. And I do want to get some surface roots coming on this side. I feel like if this is progressing still onto the substrate really well, it's not going to on this side. So I'm trying to even it out without having to do a complete repot right now. So let's see. And so what I'll do is I'll just leave it like that. Instead of, I could pull it out and disturb that soil, but I don't want to take the chance of getting any of the, roots of the current plant. Or the tree I'm trying to save here, not just this root. So I'll just let that be for a bit. If it takes as a cutting, great. If not, I'll notice it start to kind of, die back there. And as it shrivels up, if it doesn't pull out easy, I'll just go ahead and do a repot of the whole thing. Get rid of that. Now, starting now, yeah. Yeah, I'll leave it in there just like that. I thought about trying to pull it on up out of there, but see if I can straighten up the tree a little bit more. And that should accomplish what I wanted to. Alright, so I made that first part of the video back in February. Here we are towards the end of June. I think today's June 24th. This is where I cut that root off. It rotted away really quickly. I haven't had a microcarpa take with a root cutting yet, so I didn't think it would make it. This was a root over rock project that I had abandoned. Then just because it was a clearance tree and everything, I did want to take and try to experiment some with it and just go ahead and start all over with the root base. Basically, I had left that one root on there. Now everything is going to be fresh from when I repotted it. I'm going to guess probably mid-September is when I did the last full video on it. I'll try to include that link in the description. I don't think I have a playlist made for this yet. Go ahead and just take a look at what we've got here. I haven't been doing anything with it. I think in the future, I'm kind of thinking of it as having about that as a front, although just going to see how I can build these roots today. But you can see here I got these longer branches here on the bottom, and of course, you would like your lowest branches to be the longest, and they're all coming up like that. And so what I'm going to do is a lot of them even have some, like this one here has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 other branches on it. This one only has one, but you can almost even see here, or you guys should be able to see there, where it actually had a secondary branch going that way, and then that one must have sprouted, and this one I cut off, and that one got left. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take each one of these and get it down to one growing tip. I've got, I do have an even amount of branches here. I think it's either 6 or 8. And I'm going to take each one of them down to where they just have one growing tip on the end of it. And then get some wire on it. And then repot it. I usually like to have it in the active growth phase when I repot it. A few trees I haven't done that with plenty of energy built up. And this one would qualify. But I also think that by me leaving the one growing tip, that'll also help its ability to just throw out a bunch of new roots really quickly. I did think about this one. This one has a good little cluster coming off of it. And actually I'm going to wait. I'm going to come back and think about this one last. I thought about cutting that off and leaving that on there. But I'm going to look after I get everything else done at what that proportion might look like. This one's a little bit of a higher one here. This one is the one that's losing the most probably. Alright, and then I just wanted to visit this one again. I mean, figure these two being the longest, they're the lowest ones. This one's actually a little bit lower than this one. Yeah, I think I will cut it back to here. Hopefully when I wire it, I can kind of... Alright, I'll get a little bit of wire on it, see what it looks like. Alright, got all those branches flattened out some. Got some movement in there too. This is one of the trees, I think, once I see this recover from its repot and start pushing some buds towards the trunk, I may go ahead and even cut all those growing tips off that I left. Just kind of depends on how the health rebounds once I get it repotted here. Also, I did want to, I'm going to go ahead and take that apex down a little too. With these tiger barks, you can have so much more control over everything, and yet somehow or another I feel like I'm turning almost all of mine into a sumo. This is looking like it's going to be a future sumo, but we'll see what it looks like when I get it repotted here. Alright, so I'm ready to dive in here and see what we got. Would like to save as much of the soil as possible, so I'm going to put most of it in here. I have been a little surprised that there wasn't any roots escaping out of the bottom of this training pot or anything. It does seem to have made a nice little rectangle of the soil there. Alright. So I think if it wasn't for the quick hurricane repot, I'd have a lot more white roots in there. I think that mixed a lot of dirt back in there. But it does look good. And I wanted to wait and see what it looked like before I decided what kind of a pot I was going to put it in. Alright, in the words of the great Dave Mustaine, hindsight is always 20/20. I think I probably could have just went ahead and left that in that pot for another year. It would have been fine. Certainly thought it would have been a little more root bound than that. I've had this, you know, got the opportunity to do it now, so I might as well. If you watch my channel long enough, you know, especially with these ficus, sometimes I can't help but to go on out and hitting it with the hose real quick. Does have nice flat root spread. I thought about getting it in the next size training pot up, but I do have this one here. It's a little bit shallower than those training pots, and it's a little bit wider than those training pots. And I think what I'm going to do is, because I think I'm going to be using that as the front, I'm actually going to put it in there like that and kind of get the root spread to come out a little bit better in the opposite directions. Then instead of being, you know, rectangular like that, I'm going to put it in like that. Already got my tie down in place here. Got my screen in there already tied in. All right, I'm going to put some of this used soil in the bottom in here. Took all the big chunks of root out and stuff. All right, you probably noticed I didn't tie it in yet. Part of my, part of my reasoning for when I first started, I didn't tie in hardly any trees, was because, first off, a lot of my trees were so small they didn't really have a root ball that you could really tie into. And then my other thought is, Florida, these things grow so quickly, they'll be root bound in no time. I've had a few instances where some storms came through, and it would have been better had I had some trees tied in a little better than they were. Sometimes I've even tied the tree in instead of the root ball. Part of my biggest, as I just say, objection to tying them in is that I don't really repot my trees as often as some people. This one here, like I just said, I really think I should have waited another year to do that. The pot was just so small, and the tree was getting kind of a little bit larger on me, so I thought that it needed it. But what I did here, instead of tying right directly on top of the root ball, I went ahead and put that new soil in. So now when I go to tie it in, and these are really long, but now when I go to tie it in, it'll have that soil on top as a little bit of a cushion, if you will, so it won't be quite coming right down on the roots. And then again, I know some of you, some people disagree with me on this, but I also go ahead and I tie it, and then I go ahead and cut it off once I realize that it's root bound. This tree here, because I have the cushion in there with that soil, I'll probably go ahead and wait another year or so before I do anything like that. All right, and that's about it for today. Slightly over potted as far as the width of the pot goes, but that should give the tree plenty of room to grow. Let it fill this pot up. Probably the next time I go to prune those roots, I might even just put it right back into this pot again.